Hey everybody, it's David with No Chaser, and today's topic kind of will go into what's been occurring recently. I had I don't want to say health crisis, that's a little bit too drama queen. Um, Health issues. I had a kidney infection and then kidney stones. And like I said, it not fun times. Put me out of commission for a little bit. I had to have a procedure where they stick a scope, like a little video and a fiber optic cable up, not my butt, the front version of that. But I got knocked out for that, and so that happened just a couple of days ago. They put a stent in my kidney, which has made me pee every 3.8 minutes. Um, but you know what, I'm doing better now. Pain's less, all that good stuff. But it reminds me of what I'm going to do for today's topic, which is, sometimes you'll be in recovery and you'll be sober, whether it's maybe newly or moderately new, or even maybe just for a little while, like longer than that, maybe a full year. And what happens is that you almost kind of forget all the things that you've done, and not in a way that where you're unfeeling and not, have no morality. I mean, you just a lot of stuff that you may have done to get drugs, or things you were doing when you're drinking, or just the amount of drugs and alcohol you've taken and how that interacts with your body. And sometimes the sins of the past come to haunt you in the future. And you know what? It seems unfair because it's like, no, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. Um, it's a difficult journey, but I'm still trudging the road of it, and I can't. Well, I have to deal with this now. Um, and sometimes it comes in other forms, like DUIs, for instance. You're like, I, those are on my record, and now, like, if you have to get another job, you're like, oh crap, I have to put those on my record. Or if you have like possession, or maybe even possession with intent to sell, or if you have some financial crimes like writing bad checks or whatever and then you're in a better place, but those are on your record permanently. um, and that sucks because you want to say. I remember when I was doing this insurance stuff, I had a I'd get emails for certain agents. I handled just small businesses to actual individual agents, and they want to qualify to be able to sell this one other thing or sell products or all that type of stuff. And I was kind of the liaison between them. And a lot of people, they'd have these records and then have this long list, a letter to go with it that's saying that was, a bad time in my life. Sometimes they would openly say that I'm an alcoholic and addict, but I've been in recovery for this many years and all that type of stuff. I'm a completely different person now. And, for selling certain insurance things, that's like, all right, I don't care. But I know plenty of people that even if you're like that for certain jobs or many jobs, they don't care. Or maybe they do care, but it's still a risk in their mind. And so your past has come back to haunt you. The other forms, which is what I believe happened to mine, is that I remember the nurse, one of the nurses says, like, man, you're kind of young for kidney stones. And this kidney infection you had, you're kind of young for that too. And I knew in my head that, yes, I am. This kidney stuff is, I don't think there's any hiding from this truth. A truth I'm aware of but don't like is that this kidney stuff is, I believe, directly correlated to, I actually, I haven't drank since December 31st. Um, but, I had a lifetime of drinking that isn't great for the kidneys, but it's directly related to the DXM abuse. I know that stuff is, you don't have to do it very long to take its toll, and especially just like many things, it depends on your genetics. Some people could drink all their life and never have any liver problems. Some people could drink alcoholically for a couple of years, and before they know it, their liver's shutting down. But I knew this had to do with that. And that added, I had to do many things as I was going through this process. I had to fight off the urge to go into this swamp of self pity. Sitting in the hospital, I had to miss a big interview I wanted to do. And, I was like, it took a while to get to the interview, and I don't want them to go, I had to schedule it out for later, and I don't want them to have like another candidate, and I never got a chance. I missed doing recordings and stuff like that for my podcast, Shoeless in South Dakota. And, and then I'm worried about the money, just all this stuff kind of swirling around. And I just wanted to, there was an urge to just feel bad for yourself, to feel like, man, this sucks. And that's just, I believe for alcoholics and addicts, I'll at least say for sure me, that is such a trap. It's such a trap because when you embrace that sort of self-pity, then you can get into an attitude of like, well, then nothing matters just because I suck and all the, never get better, or just the universe hates me or what have you. And that, or like it can increase your depression longer or intensify it. It's just all these bad things you can fall into. And I'm not saying you go on the other side of the spectrum where you're just like that drill instructor that is super hard on yourself, even for small things. And it's just, negative self-talk all the way. You don't want to do that. You want to be in the middle ground where you find a place where you find your autonomy and just go, these are the cards I was dealt. Past is the past. I made these mistakes. But I just, you got to move on. Sitting and feeling sorry for yourself is not going to help me. I can mourn what's kind of going on, and I can feel bad, obviously, but to not stew in it. To not start to use it. People, I think, are even unaware that they use their self-pity to fuel their drinking and drugs or to relapse. So I was fighting with that, but the other thing I was fighting with was this feeling I talked about where you're just like, I have to deal with the sins of the past, but I'm trying my best, and I'm doing the right thing, and I know there's going to be crises in life, but this one, and I can't even, there's no one to blame it on or anything like that. I guess I could blame it on the disease of the addiction, but it was self-imposed, and at least it puts me in this weird place. And the one thing that I think it causes for a lot of people is that it can make them bitter or resentful. Throughout AA and even non-AA things, they said resentment is such a dangerous, the number one offender AA says about it. But other people just say it's such a dangerous headspace to be in, a mind space to get into where you're resentful. And especially if you're like, I don't have really any resentments towards people, and even most of my drinking and addiction or anything like that. But I was resentful of the way life was. Not so much that it was singling me out, but just that life is just cruel and unfair to a lot of people and stuff. And I know people had much, much harder lives than I had, but I just, that was part of it. Like, I was resentful that this life is random and mean, and evil people live long lives and die peacefully, and great people die younger and ugly, even cowardly, just a rare moment of cowardice or something. Life is just like that. And I would be resentful of that, but and I guess that I'm not trying my best to not get into that place, especially the self-pity thing, like I mentioned at first. But then this bitterness or resentfulness that comes with dealing with these things that you may be like, because here's the one thing with like the DUIs or the record that you have, and with jobs and stuff, that's always been on my mind. Whenever I got in a new job, I'm like, all right, I got to click the thing that has, have you been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony or whatever. I've always been aware of that, but like, it's stuff like this where you feel stupid for realizing it sometimes, where at least I did, where I was just like, wait, all that stuff, the poisons I was putting in my body, there's going to be consequences of that? The reason, though, it feels, I think, unfair is because it wasn't these consequences. You expect it to happen when you're in the cycle of addiction, or if you're still drinking or something. I believe, at least for me, there's a little feeling of, well, I got out of it. Like, I made it. Like, I still have stuff I have to deal with. I had lost a lot of trust and lost some relationships and opportunities at life. And one of the biggest things, I just lost time. But at least I'm like, with those things considered, I'm scot-free. And a lot of times it's like, no, you're not. Because your kidney doesn't care if you're in recovery. I mean, your liver doesn't care. I mean, if it was an actual like anthropomorphized thing, it would be like, please, thank you for being in recovery. You were just, I don't even know what you were doing earlier, but it was painful, but in real life, a lot of things don't care that you're in recovery. And when the consequences of your past come to the future, it can just be like, I know for some people that are really struggling in recovery, and this was like yours truly as well. If you're in a vulnerable place, it can be it can sting you especially bad. If things are kind of fragile or shaky, and I thought about um, this a lot with my past sort of convictions and stuff like that. The DUIs have actually been so long that it's been over 10 years, but there's always this weird things where like some of the background checks work differently, where it's like maybe you can't see those but maybe you can, so I never know. Like I always just kind of, I don't want to be caught lying, so I just have to admit to them, even to a situation where maybe I didn't have to admit to it. I had but it's just like this. I remember anytime I'd go through that process, I'd have this bareness crawl up through my gut and into my head of just like, this seems unfair. And I know a lot of people, that again, in multiple avenues throughout life have felt that. And so I think, at least in my esteemed position as just a guy with a phone in a room, I believe the only answer to dealing with this stuff, or no, the number one answer, I should say, is acceptance. Just this sort of radical acceptance. I know that sounds completely just like vague, or like, oh great, that's a wonderful thing. Just this vague sort of acceptance thing. But the acceptance I'm talking about is really formulate it in your mind. And it was like what I was saying earlier, where you just have to go to that middle ground where you go, you don't feel bad for yourself, you don't get resentful, you try to think of, these are the hands I'm dealt. The past is the past. There's things that are just done. Like some people say, when you dig up the past, all you get is dirty. And it's this sort of this mechanism of acceptance and you can't just accept it once, where you sit and you meditate and you go, I now accept myself, and then you're totally clear. It's actual, like a practice of something that it should be on my mind when I'm going through this stuff, where I have to sometimes radically accept these things, where I accept it without judgment, or at least I strive to get to that level and just think of what I do have. I think that I don't say acceptance is the only answer to this stuff. Also gratitude, like practicing gratitude can alleviate some of that bitterness you have, because you realize, like for me, this wasn't liver failure. This wasn't kidney failure. I'm still dealing with taking antibiotics for the infection, but it seems to be, I can feel from the lack of sort of pain that there was and other stuff I won't get into, that it's getting better. So nothing irreversible. It should be. And then this is a weird side, but when I was sitting in the hospital bed with the tag team of this infection and kidney stones, and probably the worst pain I've been in my entire life, to make myself feel better, I thought, man, it would be so sucky to live in like the 1800s or the 1700s. Oh my God, to have kidney stones during that time, where you're just like lying there and the doctor's like, maybe we draw blood out of him. There's little evil demons that are in his stomach that we have to draw blood, or just you drink a bunch of like moonshine, or just they have no remedy for you, and they're like, you need to get back out and work the farm. And it's just like, I'm peeing blood, and they're like, everyone's peeing blood here. It's gross here. I just thought about that, like as I was laying in this hospital bed, just incapable of doing anything. I was like, at least they don't have this in this 1700s, even as close as the 1800s. Oh God, that would be awful. But yeah, being grateful for things you have to, like I said, almost using gratitude as antibodies to go against that resentment or self-pity, or sort of just getting depressed on your own laurels because you're ruminating and you're thinking so much about these negative things in your life. So, with that being said, I'm grateful I'm here and able to do this video. My book, collection of poetry that's based on I believe the forgotten people of the American Midwest. It's called At Least the Pain is Cheap. You can buy it on Amazon, or if you don't want to spend $10 on poetry, which is totally understandable, you can send me an email at least the pain is cheap at gmail.com. It's the title of the book. I'll put the link in the description below. And you can just request a free PDF copy, and I'll send you a PDF copy. You can read it on your phone, you can read it on a tablet, you can read it on a laptop, you know. So if you just want it for free, because this was not about making money. Thank God this wasn't about making money, or I would be impoverished. But this was just about getting out there. So if you're struggling right now, my heart goes out to you. Even if you're in active drinking or addiction and you're watching this video, I wish you the least amount of suffering possible. If you're in recovery and things are going good, keep it up. That's awesome. Other than that, be well.